What is going on, YouTube? Andrew Miller, Shane Black from Hook'emHeadlines.com and the Hook'em Horn Show. We're coming back at y'all today with a look at Texas's 2024 signing class. What Texas has in the boat so far. A couple of days ago was the first day of the early signing period. Texas signed all 22 of its high school commitments in the 2024 class. If you include Anthony Smith, the 4-star Texas A&M linebacker flip. Before I go any further, I guess excuse the audio quality for this one. I've been having some technical difficulties this week as I'm back home. Trying to get those worked out, and I think by the next video we will be good to go on that, but still trying to work through some of those here, so bear with me on that. But, got good coverage up on the site this week. Talked about position-by-position grades, which is going to be the primary focus of this video. And then we also got up on the site immediate impact newcomers. Got underrated guys coming along, and then, what's next ultimately for Texas in the 2024 class. And as we're recording this on the night of December 22nd, expecting a decision here soon from 4-star Calabasas athlete, former Colorado and USC commit Aaron Butler. But I know he's on Pacific time. I'm on Eastern time right now, so it's getting pretty late. But for him, he was expected to sign during the early signing period, and there's only a couple of hours left for that. So we'll see. But, again, Texas right now at 22. In the 24/7 sports team composite rankings, Texas ranks 5th nationally, I do believe, just from the recruiting perspective, or just from the high school recruits. You include transfers. I think they're up to 3rd or 4th on 3 industry rankings. I know they're number 4. And so, it looks like Steve Sarkisian is going to get a top 5 ranked class nationally. And also, while Texas doesn't necessarily have a chance to get the number 1 slot, right now they have the highest blue chip ratio of any 2024 class in the on-3 industry rankings nationally. So, getting a lot of talent, a lot of immediate impact guys, 4 or 5 stars, and I believe 6 top 50 rated recruits, depending on the recruiting service that you look at. So, Shane, what are some of your thoughts about this class? It feels like Texas heading in the right direction, I guess, in every sense of the word, with the direction of the program right now on the field, and then on the recruiting trail with a 3rd straight top 5 class.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we saw under Herman that Texas recruits itself in a sense, and now that they're actually winning on the football field, it seems like you got the guy in Sark here in the college football playoff, first Big 12 title in 14 years. Like, that's now transitioning to the recruiting trail. You mentioned 3rd straight top 5 class, and people, some guys that we signed in this class are guys, in previous years that we might not have been able to get to stick around. Namely Ryan Wingo, who was kind of the main guy on signing day that, as people who cover Texas, we were looking towards, like, is he going to flip? Mizzou's coming on hard, Nebraska's coming on hard, but all in all, around the national landscape, it was a pretty crazy Wednesday. But for Texas, it was calm. I think that's a very good thing. You obviously lost Aaron Hampton to Alabama, but other than that, you held on to everyone you had committed, and you throw a flip in there with Anthony Smith getting the 1 linebacker.
Sorry to interrupt. Aaron Butler literally just committed.
Oh, did he really?
Yeah. Just went on Instagram Live like 2 minutes ago. So.
Well. So add another DB to the class. I mean, so
I think we're going to get him at wide receiver because Chris Jackson.
Oh,
I know.
Okay, that's interesting. I don't hate that. Yeah, I don't hate that. It'll be interesting. If Chris Jackson was the primary, then that would make sense. He'd play on the offensive side of the ball. But get as many athletes in the room as possible. You throw as many athletes out there, eventually you're going to have guys that stick, and that's how you end up competing for national championships. But my main takeaway was, once again, Sark recruiting the line of scrimmage hard. Last year was 2022 was the massive offensive line class. Last year you kind of had a mixture of both. This year, D-line heavy, signed 5 defensive linemen, whether that be 3 tech guys or edges. Colin Simmons, the 5-star Duncanville edge, setting the pace up there. His teammate Alex January, DeAndre Robinson, Zena Umazulu, and Melvin Hills as well. So I'm impressed with Sark's doing in the trenches. He knows that they're joining the SEC next year. You're going to need that depth on the line of scrimmage. that depth on the line of scrimmage won Texas a lot of games in 2023, and hopefully, pays dividends here in early January. But yeah, once again, impressed what he did on the line of scrimmage. And I think getting Brandon Baker should not be overlooked. Yeah, arguably the best tackle of the high school ranks, if not, the second best tackle in a high school class that was pretty thin at the tackle position. So for Sark to be able to go out to California, modern day high school, and get a guy like Baker into Austin, I think that's massive. So, all in all, you got to be super happy with this class. I know we're going to go position by position. There's going to be some holes in literally every class you sign. But for the most part, job well done to Sark and the staff.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta say everything about this recruiting class, especially after you add Aaron Butler, a guy that's just big time athlete, dangerous weapon, can play both sides of the ball, but like you were mentioning earlier, just an intriguing fit at wide receiver because from a big play threat perspective and just what he can do in space. He's a guy that's like a sub 22-second 200-meter dash guy, and so he's going to be dangerous in this offense. One thing that I do like about his game too is just his tenacity, his aggressiveness. If you watch his highlights, he really goes all out to fight through contact, finish blocks. I mentioned this in the breakdown I did for his commitment, but the way that the effort and intensity that he shows blocking downfield for the screen game on the outside as a run blocker, it's something that can really set the tone for Texas there. We always talk about the comparison of like a Jordan Whittington type where you just have that next level effort. And I think Butler brings that. So nice addition to get to 23 high school commitments in this class and 25 total when you're including the two transfer commitments, Matthew Golden and Andrew Makuba. And so, we'll start with the grades here. We're going to, there's 7 position groups that I included here. I did wide receiver and tight end together. So, but we'll start with quarterback. Texas had one guy in the 2024 class that they signed. It's kind of an in-between stage right now for quarterback. So you more got like a long-term developmental guy that's like a good fit in Sark's offense. That's 3-star Cypress Site Fair product Trey Owens. Texas was on him pretty early. I think he was committed last spring, I do believe it was. And he's been really active in this class and, really been, someone that can rally the troops, if you will, very active on social media. And so I like his presence here from a physical perspective. He's about 6'3", 6'4", big arm quarterback, really one of those guys from just an arm strength perspective that can make a lot of throws. And, especially in the intermediate and deep passing game, I've been really impressed with his accuracy. He's tremendously improved year over year. He had a big year at Sci-Fair for his senior season. And so I think he's got some momentum coming onto the 40 acres. I gave this position group a B just because when you get a 3-star quarterback, it's an in-between cycle. It still checked the box that you needed it to, so it's solid. But, I mean, is Trey Owens expected to come in and be really like a program-changing talent? No, but you never know. He is someone that can compete for the starting job a few years down the line. It's just, you got Arch Manning on campus. He's taking a red shirt this year, it looks like, and we'll see what happens in the playoff. But, he's that leaves you with that leaves you with KJ Lacey in the 2025 class, where he's also expected to be an eventual starter on the 40. So what are your thoughts on Owens?
Yeah, I threw the grade as a B+. You mentioned, it's going to be impossible to recruit the quarterback position after you sign Arch Manning because, people see the writing on the wall and they don't want to come in. I think for Owens, it's a perfect fit though, because he is, 2 years, get familiar with the system, beef up in the weight room, and then 2026 potentially compete for that starting job. And I threw a B+ out there. I threw the plus on the end just because he was instrumental in kind of, like you said, rallying the troops for this class. He was one of the front men, and you like to see that out of your quarterback, even if the quarterback isn't, the top-rated guy in the class. Owens did a great job kind of bringing this group together. So long-term potential, I think he's got some high upside, and nearly impossible to recruit after signing Arch Manning in 2023. So you knew you weren't going to really be involved with the top 5 type guys, the Dylan Raiola's. So Yeah, I think it's a great get, and I think Owens, has a chance. 2026 would be the year for him to start getting some reps.
Running back. So, Tashard Choice has been arguably Texas's best position coach on the recruiting trail. And when he sets his sights on someone, he rarely, if ever, misses. He proved that again in the 2024 class. Texas signing 2 blue chip running back recruits this week. The highest rated being 4-star IMG Academy running back Jarrett Gibson. When Texas landed him, I think he was the number 2 running back recruit in the nation in the 2024 class in the 24/7 Sports Composite. Still one of the highest rated running backs in this class. He's a big 5'10", 215-pound back. Just good combination of just like burst, quickness, but still a bruising style runner. I think he's someone that by his second year on the 40, just because of how much talent and depth Texas has in the running back room now. We'll see if we lose Jonathan Brooks this year, but it looks like he's probably headed to the NFL draft despite the ACL injury. But, Gibson's going to be a potential multi-year starter. Excuse me. A potential multi-year starter at Texas. But from the perspective of field vision, size, ability to play through contact, I think he's got that SEC frame right now. And then the other running back commit in this class is Christian Clark, 4-star from Phoenix Mountain Point High School in Arizona. I mentioned this in the article. I think that Clark is one of the most underrated commits in this class. I think the type of versatility that he brings, kind of that quick one-cut ability where, you just the balance, the vision. You hear the comparisons. I think even Steve Sarkisian said it at one point. Maybe it was Tashard Choice that, they saw like Bijan Robinson in him in certain ways. I do think Bijan is more talented, but, Clark, he is really polished as a receiver. He's a decent blocker. And so, it's unfortunate. I don't think he will be an early enrollee in this class because I do think he's someone that can make some headway. But I think he's going to be a multi-year impact guy as well. So Texas getting 2 really solid running backs in this class that have different skill sets that do fit different roles. And so I gave this position an A.
I'm right there with you. I had it listed as an A. I think anytime you get 2 guys in a running back class who you believe can be real contributors during their time in the 40s is an absolute success. You mentioned Jarrett Gibson at the top, one of the best running backs in the nation at IMG Academy. And then Christian Clark, I completely agree with you. Kind of flew under the radar, wasn't as highly rated, obviously, as Gibson or even as a lot of running backs, seeing him in like the 25 to 35 range. But I think he's going to be a guy year 2, maybe even year 3, where once he starts getting touches, he's going to make the most of them. Almost like what we saw with Jonathan Brooks in year 2, where it was like every time Brooks touched the ball in year 2, seemed to go for a big play or a touchdown. I think you could see that with Clark in year 2, and then year 3 he's really competing for some first-team reps. I completely agree with what you said about Jarrett Gibson coming in and playing on day 1. If Jonathan Brooks does not return, I think you got to feel really confident with a 3-headed monster of C.J. Baxter, Jaden Blue, and Jarrett Gibson to kick off your first season in SEC play next year. On top of Savion Red, Trey Wisner, you have Christian Clark as well. So running back room is very deep. Shout out to Tashard Choice, and yeah, I'm going with an A here.
So moving on to wide receiver and tight end, I did separate grades, but on my position by position grades, they're on the same part of the list. So, wide receiver, when I wrote the article and posted it, Aaron Butler was not committed to this class. So I'll change my grade here a little bit with him in the class now, literally as we are recording the video. But that's just going to kind of be an on-the-fly thing for me. So, the crown jewel of this wide receiver class is 5-star St. Louis University product from Missouri, Ryan Wingo. Wingo, unquestionably immediate impact talent at receiver, 6'2", 210 pounds about, elite physical profile, athleticism, good route running, great hands. He's a dangerous yards after the catch guy. Versatility, you can line him up in multiple wide receiver spots. And so I think that, regardless if he wins a starting spot, which if he comes in and makes, really makes waves, really shows out during spring ball, there's a chance that I think he can push for a starting spot at the boundary receiver with, Texas expected to lose Adonai Mitchell to the NFL draft next spring. And then, with Casey Kane and Isaiah Neyor already in the portal. Casey Kane committing to UNLV. I think it was yesterday or today. Wingo, he'll have a chance. I think without a doubt can lock down a spot on the 2 deep and get some key early reps, but definitely multi-year starter at Texas. Freddie Dubose, 4-star Spring Branch Smithson Valley product. I believe in most of the for most of the major recruiting services, he's the second highest rated guy, at least among the true wide receiver commits in this class. I like the commitment of Dubose. I know that there were some schools that kind of backed off of his recruitment once he suffered the ACL tear last fall. But man, he's bounced back and really still showing that speed, balance, ability to high point the football. Dubose, again, another guy. I think he's about 6'1", 6'2", that can really play multiple spots in the receiving core, field, or boundary. If he continues to show like glimpses of not only glimpses of his former self, but really show that he's getting back to 100% and continuing to get better and improve year over year, that he is someone that can push for a spot on the 2 deep by his second, third year on campus. And then Parker Livingstone, the other wide receiver signing that signed with Texas on Wednesday, 4-star guy, big 6'4" boundary receiver. Again, I think it underrated skill set in the sense that a lot of people don't necessarily notice. He's got above average straight line speed. He's tremendous at high pointing the football, good vertical ability in terms of the route concepts you need to be able to execute at a high level on the boundary. He also does that really, really well. From a technical perspective, he is pretty advanced since he's coming out of high school. And so, Texas getting 2-3 guys in this class that can all play boundary receiver. Livingstone, being the one that has the biggest frame, probably the most natural size to play on the outside. And then Aaron Butler, I mentioned his skill set a little bit earlier in the video. Just absolute dangerous playmaker, burner, track level speed. Again, sub 22 second, 200 meter dash guy. I believe sub 7 seconds, 60 yard dash as well. And so, Butler probably be a guy that's playing out of the slot, I would imagine. You can move him around a good bit. I even mentioned in my breakdown of him that you could play him out of the backfield some, just given his ability in space, how physical he plays, and the positional versatility that he brings. With Butler in the class, I'll bump it up to an A-. I had originally given it a B+ because I know that Texas still needed to add another wideout in this class, and so I still felt like they were a piece away at the time. But with Butler in the mix now, I'm willing to bump that up into the A- range.
Yeah, I think overall, pretty solid class. You got, the crown jewel you're looking for with Ryan Wingo. Originally about a year ago, we thought that crown jewel would potentially be Micah Hudson. And, whether you prefer one over the other, you really needed a high-level 5-star receiver in this class, and you got him with Wingo. I think Wingo's a great player. Like you mentioned, could compete for starting time in year one. Regardless, I think he's going to see the field a lot, and he'll be in that. Sark pretty much sticks with like his 3 or 4 guys that he has at receiver, and I think Wingo will crack that group next fall. And then I'm really high on Freddie Dubose. I mean, I was looking for the exact ranking, but after his sophomore spring and summer, going into his junior year, he was one of the higher ranked receivers in his class, and then obviously tore his ACL game 1 of his junior year in 2022. And so that, that recovery has been here and there, but Dubose mentioned it in an Instagram post. Texas never gave up on me. The staff never gave up on me. And I think, he could come in and not shock some people, but, play above what that current rating is. I think Texas could have a gem here. And Parker Livingstone, you always like having big bodied receivers in the classes. He's another one of those guys that helped bring this class together. And I think he has a chance to compete for reps, year 2, year 3. And Aaron Butler, too, you just mentioned. I in my mind, he was going to play on the defensive side of the ball. But if he is going to play on offense, anytime he can get that speed in Sark's system, I think is, A+. So, yeah, I got an A- for this grade. But all in all, you can't do much better, besides potentially bringing in like a Hudson and a Wingo. I do really like the class, though, regardless.
Yeah, I mean, to your point for DeBose, he was a borderline top 100 guy in the 24/7 Sports Composite when they had initially ranked him with the rest of the guys in the 24 class. He was a .9452 rating in his 24/7 Sports Composite, which puts him borderline top 100, top 20, top 125 guy nationally, and top 20 at the position. So, yeah, I mean, with him, kind of returning to form, I think that was an underrated get in this class during the summer. Regarding the outlook at wideout, I do think this was a solid class. I think 2025 cycle is really when you can get the truly elite group. DeCorian Moore, obviously being that top guy, number one wide receiver recruit in the nation now in the 2025 class. And you got other guys you're going after too. Marcus Harris, number one wide receiver from California in the 25 class, and Andrew Marsh, a 5-star guy from Texas that, the Longhorns really like. And so there's a lot of guys they're high on that I think could end up at Texas here in a couple of years. Tight end. Texas signed one tight end in this class out of high school. You got 4-star Houston Langham Creek product, Jordan Washington. Big receiving tight end threat, I think, 6'4", about 215 pounds. Guy that was increasingly productive and a good route runner. Someone that you can line up outside, flex. I think a willing blocker, but still needs to improve, needs to add a little bit of weight, work on his technique. That's really, I think, what will be limiting Washington to more of an impact guy in his second or third year on campus. But, Texas no doubt has big plans for him. He was the guy that Jeff Banks wanted as the receiving tight end in this class. I gave this position a B because I think that Texas still needs to add an immediate impact tight end in this class, whether it be portal or high school recruiting. At this point, you're probably looking portal if you're going to add anyone. But, you're expected to lose Jatavian Sanders next spring. That leaves you just with Gunnar Helm in terms of the guys that have live game reps at Texas on the roster. And so, that's where I sit on it.
Yeah, I was a little bit lower. I settled on a C because I thought the plan was, to bring in two guys, one, more of a receiving threat and then more of an inline blocking H-back type role, tight end. And Banks is only really able to land the one receiving threat in Jordan Washington. I think Washington will end up being a good player on the 40, but like you mentioned, he's not going to be ready to play in year one. He's athletic and you can flex him out, but his body's just not going to hold up anytime you try to, bring him in line to run block. And I gave it a C as well because, like you mentioned, the position is in a bit of a flux right now. If JT Sanders ends up going to the draft like we all expect him to, then you got Gunnar Helm, who will be back for his senior year. I'm not sure if he gets a COVID or a red shirt in there, so hopefully Helm's around for 2 more years would be nice. And you have guys like Spencer Shannon and Will Randall on the roster, but we don't really know what we're getting from those guys. So I think the position in general with the departure of Sanders is going to be a little up in the air. So I would have liked to see the staff target just even more depth, not even super high level. I'm not asking for, a top 3 tight end in the class, but just, more depth at the position. I think signing only one was a little bit unfortunate.
Yeah, and I mean, I know tight end is still one of the positions they're looking at and evaluating in the portal right now. I do agree that I think if you're planning on playing as many two tight end sets as Texas has in the last couple of years, just to put it straight up, that you're probably going to need you're going to need another more impactful, more proven player at the position that Texas has on campus right now. But I do like Jordan Washington. I do like the direction of the tight end room because you got Amari Winston, the 4-star that committed to the 2025 class here a few days ago. And so I think the direction of the room is positive right now, but yeah, you do need one more immediate impact guy. Offensive line. I saw mixed reactions or mixed grades, I guess, from other articles I saw on this topic. I think that Texas got another really good offensive line haul. You didn't need to go out and get a ton of guys just to add depth here. Texas kind of did that in the last cycle when you added 6 offensive linemen in the 2023 class. You got I think you got 2 immediate impact players along the offensive line in this signing class. You got 5-star Santa Ana Mater Dei offensive tackle Brandon Baker, number 2 offensive tackle recruit in the nation in the 2024 class. Someone that can be an immediate starter, I think, at guard or at offensive tackle. More than likely, it would be at right tackle to replace Christian Jones. Could compete with Cam Williams there. But, I think he's got the frame. He's got the football IQ, the mature skill set. He's about 6'5", 305 pounds. Good length, good drive, good foot speed. Mentioned all these in my article, but I think he's a guy that, will hold up as a pass or in pass pro and as a run blocker right away, whether you want to play him along the interior or, have him playing at right tackle in that spot left by Christian Jones next year. And so, I obviously getting him from California was just massive for Kyle Flood and the Longhorns in this class. Flood continues to do good work on the recruiting trail with these elite guys. Daniel Cruz, I think, is the next immediate impact guy in this class. 4-star interior offensive lineman out of North Richland Hills, Richland High School in the DFW Metroplex. Someone that Flood targeted early in this class and just wasn't going to let him get away. Cruz about 6'3", 310-pound center that I think is the future of the center position for Texas. Depending on what Texas does, or depending on what Jake Majors decides to do next spring as an NFL draft decision, I think that Cruz could come in and potentially compete for the starting job. He's planning on being an early enrollee. I think from the perspective of physicality, aggressiveness, technique, drive, he's tremendous as a run blocker. Once he latches onto you, you're just not really going to get away. He just finishes blocks at a really high level. Also in pass pro, he's really solid there, really consistent. So body mover that's consistent in pass pro at center, that checks a lot of boxes. And then lastly, in this class along the offensive line, you got Nate Kibble, 3-star interior offensive lineman out of Humboldt-Atascocita High School. Kibble, I think this is another one of those developmental guys, big body, big human, about 6'4", I think like 325 pounds. Athletic guard. I think that, given maybe 2 or 3 years of, developing his technique, getting a little bit quicker, he could be a guy that pushes for a starting job at left or right guard. So I gave offensive line an A. I think that this class, you got 2 immediate impact guys and another developmental one. Anytime you can get that in a 3 lineman haul, I think you're doing well.
I completely agree. I echo everything you said. I went with an A-, but 11 offensive linemen signed in the past 2 classes. Sark put emphasis on bringing big humans to Austin. He's certainly done that. I think there are 18 scholarship offensive linemen on this 2023 team. At some point, you don't have to keep going for 5 or 6 a class. You don't need those sheer numbers. You have the numbers. Now you can be a little more picky, and it's exactly what they did in this cycle. Brandon Baker, we mentioned him, one of the best offensive tackles in the country. You mentioned Daniel Cruz, a guy who can come in and play center immediately. They targeted those 2 guys. They're like, we know where you can play, and we think you can help us out early on. And then you get a guy like Nate Kibble as well, who, A&M was pretty hard after, but he's someone who, year 3 can come in and be, a steady guard, left or right guard. So, yeah, I think it's an A- class. I think you couldn't have done much better. Hats off to Kyle Flood and staff.
I think the only thing you could have done to make this class a little bit better was getting that, blue chip guard in this class, that bigger body, your offensive line, like a DeAndre Carter. I think that's, for me, why it's not an A+ class.
That's fair.
Yeah. Defensive line and edge. So, again, they're on the same part of the list, but I graded these 2 position groups separately. Along the defensive line, Texas got 3 commitments. You got 4-star, highest rated is 4-star Orlando Jones product, DeAndre Robinson. Robinson, he's one of my favorite commitments in this class. He's an SEC style lineman that Texas got from, went into Florida, beat out a lot of the Florida schools, namely the Gators, to get his commitment. And, again, big 6'3", about 315-pound interior defensive lineman, just a really productive playmaker around the line of scrimmage. Someone that can play that 3-tech role and I think do it really effectively. Robinson, from technique and hand usage perspectives, I think he still has a little bit of improvement, a little bit of room for improvement there. But, I still think he's a early impact guy, maybe not an immediate impact guy at defensive line. Which is fine because Texas, I think, has a lot of depth along the defensive line. Is probably going to add because I think they're probably going to take a guy or two out of the portal this offseason. Next one, 4-star Duncanville interior defensive lineman Alex January. I actually think that Alex January is probably the most impact-ready defensive lineman in this class, at least among the current guys that Texas has. He's just a big, powerful disruptor along the interior D-line. He had a really big senior season at Duncanville. That combination between him and Colin Simmons was just deadly for them winning another 6A1 state title. Like I said, I think he can come in, maybe play nose, maybe play the 3-tech, but either way, first or second year, you could see him potentially getting some reps there. And then lastly, 3-star Lafayette Christian Academy defensive lineman Melvin Hills. Another underrated defensive lineman that Bo Davis got from the Southeast. Melvin Hills, I've been kind of watching a lot of his game this season because he's had an incredibly productive senior season at LCA. Nearly 24 tackles for loss, 15 sacks. I think in the ballpark of 30 to 35 quarterback pressures. This is someone that's dealt with some knee injuries in the last couple of years, and has kind of been working his way back from that. But I do think that Hills, he's coming in. Bo Davis obviously has a very proven track record of developing interior defensive linemen. That a few years down the line, I think Hills could be a really productive guy, really good force as a pass rusher. Someone that can play a little bit more outside, more of that 3-tech, because right now he's about 6'3", 6'4", 275 pounds. So he's got some room to add some weight. But I gave the defensive line class a B+ because you still need that other guy. You don't have that. First of all, you don't have that true immediate impact defensive lineman in this class, which those guys are really hard to find. Usually defensive linemen a little bit of development before they're ready to truly make an impact, especially in the SEC. But, you didn't get McKinley. Terrence Hibbler was some guy they were trying. You didn't get that fourth defensive tackle that you wanted in this class. So that's why I have it at a B+. But I was thinking maybe B, but I do really like all three of these guys when I look at their film individually. So, and another more news coming through here. It looks like Malik Murphy just transferred to Duke.
You mentioned January as being someone who could compete immediately. I think the great thing about what Sark and the staff has done, Bo Davis, is you don't really need any of the interior guys to play immediately. You're definitely going to lose Murphy and Sweat, but if you get Collins, you get Broughton to come back, you got Sadir Mitchell, Trill Carter. So you're not going to need these guys to come right in and play. And on the edge, Colin Simmons was the crown jewel. So that was a massive, massive get. If you're a Texas fan, don't undersell that. That I think signing Colin Simmons is kind of a signifier of, all right, this program is trending upwards, because that's a guy, 4 years ago that he's not ended up at Texas. He's probably going to LSU. So I think that's a big get. Don't sleep on that. We all know how good he is, but I just want to reiterate that. I think he is. When you mentioned about guys coming in competing early, I think Simmons is a guy that he's going to get his fair share of snaps. You'd have to think next fall how productive they are. I don't think he's going to come in and be a 10-sack guy, but he is and does have the ceiling of a 10-sack guy in year 2, year 3. And then pairing that with Zena off the edge as well, who's got an interesting body type. I think you can use him in a couple different ways. I like what the staff did here, and I think they're going to add to the interior in the transfer portal. But all in all, I go with an A-. I like most of these pieces.
So I separated the edge and the defensive line grades.
Oh, okay, I gotcha.
So I gave it a B+ for purely. For edge, I'll cover that now. I gave that an A+ because I just think that I don't know what else you wanted to do at edge, because Texas looking to add guys out of the portal. I guess, I'll actually add a note card on this at the beginning of the video, but this is really just high school guys we're looking at here. It still plays a role in the grades, what Texas did in the portal, but, just from a positional need perspective. At edge, Texas expecting, I think, positive news here from Trey Moore here in the next couple of days. He's expected to announce this weekend, so that gives you another, potential multi-year eligibility guy, multi-year starter at the edge position. Then Texas already bringing back 2 starters at the edge position in Barron Sorrell and Ethan Burke. and you add just an absolute elite talent like Colin Simmons. I know that I don't even think Simmons was rated as the best edge rusher recruit in this class. And to that, I would say, who is that much better than him? Because, I mean, just he checks every box that you could want. Like physically. Yeah. I mean, so yeah, Simmons physically 6'3", it looks like 230 pounds was the last win I could find. But, lightning quick off the edge, natural bend, good flexibility, insane closing speed. Just an elite pass rusher regarding productivity and disruptiveness. I know he didn't put up the sack numbers his senior season at Duncanville like he did as a junior, but still was incredibly important. Multiple sacks in the state title game, and even had like essentially what was the game sealing forced fumble on a strip sack. So, he's just going to be a playmaker, that edge rusher that we needed. I wrote this in my article. I think he was that must-win recruit for Texas in this class, like you said, just someone that Texas wouldn't have gotten here a few years ago. And so the biggest win of this class for me, without a doubt. I do think even with the depth that Texas has at the edge position, it's going to be hard to keep him off the field. He is an early enrollee, so he's going to get those valuable early reps next spring. It's hard to get Colin Simmons in this class and not grade that as an A+, because Zena Umeozulu, 4-star out of Allen, is also, I think, a quality edge player where, he's got a little bit longer to develop before I think he's really ready to make an impact, because he's still on the slimmer side. He's about 6'4", but he can probably add at least 20 to 25 more pounds of muscle mass before he's truly ready to compete off the edge. But, Umeozulu, I think, once he gets a little bit bigger, he's going to be really stout in run defense. Just regarding his ability in run defense, someone that can really set the edge. Did that well in high school. And from a pass rushing perspective, again, he's got the length. I think he's got the quickness to get there. It's just, again, you still need to add a little bit more size. And so, again, great edge class. Two guys that could be multi-year star, where Simmons, I think you're expecting he is on the 2 deep, if not starting every single year he's at Texas. So great class for the edge position, without a doubt. Next up here, linebacker. We could probably do this one pretty quick because Texas got, one guy was a big signing day flip for Texas, one of their big in-state priorities in this cycle. 4-star Jasper linebacker Anthony Smith. Texas flipped him from A&M. I believe it was on the evening of signing day, and got him to sign on the dotted line. I think that Smith, has some versatility, could play a couple of different positions at linebacker for this Texas defensive front. I think off-ball linebacker is probably the most natural fit, just from like a length and skill set perspective. Probably fits there best. He was really productive playing off-ball linebacker at Jasper, so I don't think the transition would be all that difficult. I still think he's got to put on a little bit more size, about 6'2", 205 pounds. So you'd like to get him up around that 220-pound mark at least, if not 225. But he's got good wingspan, had over 100 combined tackles. I mentioned the productivity in high school, he was at least double-digit tackles for loss, 4 interceptions, 4 fumbles. So, I think he's someone that has a skill set, closing speed, football instincts, IQ, fits the modern game really well, can play in coverage. And, I think he will be a multi-year starter at Texas when that happens, probably around his sophomore, junior year. I gave linebacker, I gave it a B. It's similar to quarterback, where you didn't need to take a linebacker in this class, but, just the right guy surfaced, and Texas was able to get him. And so, Texas has a lot of young linebacker talent on campus right now from a Great Hall in 2023 cycle, but, Smith is a really solid get.
Yeah, you pretty much touched on it all. I went with a C+, but we're kind of splitting hairs here. I think the big thing was you landed 4 linebackers in the 23 cycle that, we've already seen what Anthony Hill can do. And you got 3 other guys in Siliakana, Darian Gillette and Samaje Burrell, who all high hopes that they can end up, being contributors on the defense down the road. So didn't really need a line. And LaFau as well, if he ends up, whatever role he ends up having. And Jelani McDonald's probably going to end up being in the secondary. But if he just puts on like 30 pounds out of nowhere, which I wouldn't be surprised, because that man, I don't know, we've talked about this. We're both high on McDonald. But, Yeah, regardless, I think anytime you can flip an A&M guy, that's an awesome feeling. Ty Anthony Smith, you know, insanely productive, like you mentioned. I think it's going to take a year or two for him to put on that weight, get a little better in pass coverage to be able to hang against, SEC backs and tight ends. But yeah, I think you couldn't ask for anything better than, the day before signing day, getting him to flip. And, one thing that's pretty interesting as well, because you mentioned it when you first said his name, this was the linebacker that, the staff wanted. And when you look at it, according to On Threes, the number 31 linebacker in the class, I thought it's interesting. He's the third ranked linebacker in the state, though. Like, it just not a great cycle for Texas linebackers for whatever reason that may be. I'm not sure, but
outside of the other guy that Texas was looking to get, he obviously you would love to get him, but committed to Georgia, stayed solid with them. So.
Exactly. And Justin Williams was the number one overall linebacker. And then you had, Peyton Pierce out of Lovejoy, who was the 18th ranked linebacker. And then was Ty Anthony Smith from Texas. So, I think it's a good get. He's not going to play in year one, really. Potential special teamer. I mean, he moves well. So I could see him being a contributor on, punt and kick. But I think it's a good get all in all. C+ for me.
I think that's fair. Next up, defensive back. This is another one where I didn't do safety and cornerback separately because Texas likes to cross train these guys. Mm-hmm. So I don't know 100% where all these guys are going to be playing yet outside of a select few. And so, but this defensive back class is the best that I've seen since I've covered the Longhorns. Last year's defensive back class was really, really solid because you got, again, two immediate impact guys, two SEC caliber defensive backs in Manny Muhammad and Derek Williams. And, you got other guys. Warren Robertson is a great example. Jelani McDonald, that you can be starters here in the next couple of years. And so, but this class, it's probably going to yield at least one starter. And I think maybe say 2-3 years down the line, Texas got 6 scholarship defensive backs in this class, all of which are blue chips. 2 of which are top 50 guys nationally across all positions in the 24 class. And so, I think that, from the perspectives of talent, depth, immediate impact ability, this defensive back class just checks all the boxes. I'll start here. 5-star Florida. Well, what am I saying? Florida flip, but 5-star McKinney safety. Xavier Filsaime, number 2 safety recruit in the nation in the 24 class in the 24/7 Sports Composite and On 3 industry ranking. He was the biggest win late cycle for Texas, without a doubt. Texas got in on this recruitment pretty late, but, got him in for an official visit last weekend. That went really well, and then was able to flip his commitment. I believe that was Monday, and then he signed on the dotted line on Wednesday. And so, Texas getting a really rangy, athletic, about 6 foot, 180-pound field safety. And can immediately compete for a spot, not only on the 2 deep, but potentially for a starting spot during the spring. I think there's a great chance that you see Filsaime and Derek Williams by the end of next season as your 2 starting safeties at Texas. Again, they're both just incredibly rangy. Williams is insanely physical, and Filsaime just covers so much ground so fast. I think the one thing I noted on my commitment breakdown for him was the lack of turnover production, but I think that's going to end up coming along over time. But yeah, just how fast he closes, how good he is in one-on-one coverage. He just doesn't let players get over the top on him. There's really no wideout that he won't be able to match up with. Again, just another guy. He's an early enrollee, going to get right down to business. I think he's just going to be too good to keep off the field next year. Next highest rated guy among the defensive backs in this class, high 4-star Waco Connolly cornerback Kobe Black, someone that had been silently committed to Texas for a long time, but announced his commitment publicly on December 13th. Texas has been pitching him to be an immediate impact cornerback on the boundary. We've had this conversation regarding Ryan Watts. I think, regardless if he decides to come back to Texas for another season, he would probably play at safety. And so that boundary spot, I think, is going to be up for competition. Kobe Black can come in, push for reps there right away. He's got the physical profile to fit there. 6'2", about 200 pounds. And regarding ball skills, versatility, physicality, speed, above average to great in all of those categories. And so, obviously Kobe Black was kind of I think the must-win cornerback recruitment for Texas in-state in this class, and you end up getting your guy. Again, another multi-year starter at Texas. I think you look 3 years down the line, could be one of the best boundary corners in the SEC. He's got that type of talent, but he's a high floor prospect. So he's pretty mature right now. I think someone that, could be a starter by the end of next season. Just, we saw Malik Muhammad, how quickly he came along this fall. If Kobe Black is a similar type of prospect where he's just ready to go from day one, just gets down to business, I wouldn't be surprised if he pushes for those reps. Wardell Mack, 4-star Marrero John Ehret cornerback, another high 4-star guy that Texas got in this class, flipped him from Florida in mid-November. I really love Wardell Mack just regarding his ceiling. I think how good he can be on the 40 after a year or two. I mentioned this in the article I did for the positional grades in this class. I think that he'll very likely be a starter at corner by 2025. You need to add a little bit more weight. I think technically could get a little bit more polished there, but enormous wingspan, 34 inches plus. I think he's going to be a special teams gunner for a year and then potentially again be a starter by 2025. Santana Wilson, another quality cornerback in this class, 4-star guy, son of former NFL defensive back Adrian Wilson. Santana, he's just another underrated cornerback where it's rare that you get the son of an NFL defensive back who has above average speed, who has the requisite length at the position, about 6 foot, 175 pounds, good ball skills, pretty good hands, good hips. I think I said that already, but it's like, I don't know how you get that stout of a one-on-one cornerback in coverage that is ranked outside of the top 150 nationally in most composite rankings from the major recruiting services. But Wilson, I think he's going to be a fantastic cornerback at Texas. It's kind of hard to project exactly when he'll be able to see the field at Texas as a potential starter, but I just think that he's skilled enough to where, a couple of years into his career, I think he's going to be making some noise here and, pushing for that spot on the 2 deep. Jordan Johnson-Rebel, 4-star safety. I believe that's what rounds out the list here. Just really physical, smart, intelligent safety. Hits hard. I think he can generate turnovers at a high clip at the next level. And, ultimately can play in that nickel or safety role, potentially boundary safety. We'll see. But, Texas's staff, like Gideon, identified him early on. I remember talking to him a couple of years ago even where, he knew that Texas had a plan for him. He was ready to go. He's from Fort Worth. So, while he played at IMG Academy in Bradenton, Florida, he's, knows a lot of guys, I think, in this class, had relationships with them growing up. And so I think he's a good fit here as well. I actually think JJR could be an impact player by his second year on campus. He's not the tallest guy in the world, but like size wise, he's there already. I gave this defensive back class an A+ because I feel like I just talked about that for 10 minutes and I feel like I have a lot more to say about it if we had the time. Just, we could do an entire separate video on this defensive back class.
Yeah, no, you covered it pretty well. I'm in agreement here. A+ for me. It was interesting too because you look a month ago and you're sitting there with Santana Wilson and Jordan Johnson Rebel as your only 2 guys. You flip Wardell Mack from Florida. You flip Xavier Filsaime from Florida. And you sign Kobe Black. I think the staff knew that Kobe Black had been locked up. Kobe said he was a silent commit since the summer. And we expected, in late June that he was about to announce. But, good on him. Take his time. But, yeah, A+. This class is so versatile, too. I'm not gonna hammer on because you did a great job covering it. I do think an interesting point was that I was thinking about. I think you can pretty much guarantee this won't happen. But these 5 could line up, like, in the secondary together. Like, you could have Filsaime and JJR at safety. You can throw Wardell Mack at the star, Kobe Black at boundary and Santana Wilson at field corner. Like this is like, and the great thing about this is you could flip that a lot of different ways. You know, the versatility is high. I think you touched on it on Santana Wilson. He's my, underrated player on the defensive side of the ball in this class that I'm really high on. You know, that length is something that especially the NFL covets these days at corner. In the SEC, it's going to be a game changer. You know, pretty dang good speed for someone that lengthy. Yeah, I think he could end up being a really good player. And obviously, we know the pedigree of Kobe Black and Wardell Mack, top 100 type guys. And getting Phil Simi was just absolutely huge. And, you were mentioning it reminds me of the 2018 class where you had Caden Stearns, B.J. Foster, Jalen Green, Anthony Cook, Deshaun Jameson, who came in as an athlete, DeMarvion Overshown, who came in as a linebacker. Like, you had all these guys who were very versatile, and some of it didn't work out for some of them, but for the most part, you got a lot of productivity, especially towards the latter years on the 40. I think this class might be even a little bit better because you're going to see some day one action from guys like Phil Simi and Kobe Black. So I'm really excited about this defensive back class, and like I said at the top, completely agree with you on that A+ rating.
Yeah, I mean, because you're just getting a little bit of everything from this group. So, and you got I think an immediate starter at nickelback in the portal. So even if you were looking for there's not a ton of starting jobs that you need to fill in the secondary in 2024 because you got so much talent coming back. You got Terrence Brooks, Manny Muhammad, Derek Williams. I digress, but yeah,
it's interesting because obviously I don't want to completely go on a side tangent here, but the thing you're worried about against Washington is the back end. I think 2 years from now, it's going to be like Texas. You cannot throw the ball on this team because so many athletes, high IQ players that make plays on the football. If they can put it all together, man, it's going to be scary throughout the two deep in the secondary.
I agree. Before we get going here, there's a few names I want to pinpoint. As guys that are going to be late signing period targets for Texas. We've mentioned Dominic McKinley already in the 24 class. The 25 class is going to be really the group to watch, I think, moving forward because you got the first junior day of the offseason less than a month away in January. And so, but a few other guys, mainly along the defensive line. You got 3-star Baylor commit Alex Foster. Texas hosted him on a visit. I believe that was an official visit. Yeah. Last weekend when he was on campus with Phil Simi and Ty Anthony Smith. Dominic McKinley, Dylan Evans, the 4-star Texas A&M defensive line commit from Longview Pine Tree High School in Texas, signed Texas A&M today. I know there was some buzz between him and Texas here in the last 48 hours or so. So you can pretty much take him off the board. I think along the defensive line is really those two guys, unless you get, some late cycle emergence, maybe a JUCO guy, but it's probably either Foster, McKinley, or Portal at this point there. Aaron Butler kind of finishes off your wide receiver class, at least from high school recruiting. And so Portal guy maybe still in play there. And then regarding Portal, Trey Moore is the name to watch right now. I know a lot of people are looking at Evan Stewart and seeing what Texas does there. We'll see. I published an article on the site when he entered the portal here a few days ago saying that, Texas expected to be a school in contention for him. And I don't doubt that to be the case. It's just how much does Texas actually push for him? Because obviously there's going to be some high level programs involved, I think, in that portal recruitment. Let's finish off the video with this. So, we talked about position by position grades here. I guess we didn't mention special teams. Michael Kern, punter. Yeah. I want to mention him because I actually think I definitely think he's someone that can come in and potentially be your starting punter next year because Ryan Sanborn exhausts his eligibility. Kern, number 4 punter recruit in the nation in this class, and averaged over 46 yards per punt in his senior season in St. Thomas Aquinas in Florida, and so wouldn't be surprised there.
Yeah, I think, we don't have to talk too much about it, but going into Florida, St. Thomas Aquinas down south and pulling, a top 5 specialist, I think damn good pull. Like Jeff Banks, shout out. And one quick thing about your note about going on to the later signing period, I just counted only 11 of the top 247 prospects in the class of 2024 remain unsigned, a little over 4%. that just shows, how much college football and recruiting has shifted to pretty much everyone signing on early signing day. So,
Yeah.
it's going to be mostly, you mentioned a couple names to watch out for. It's going to be mostly transfer names going forward.
I think so. I definitely think that will be the case. Let's finish off the video with this. 2 or 3 guys that you pick in this class that you think are some of the most underrated signees. I've mentioned some names already in this video. 2 that stick out to me among like the lower rated guys in this class that I do think are pretty underrated. Melvin Hills, the 3-star defensive tackle from Lafayette Christian Academy in Louisiana. I just think he's really productive. He kind of fits that mold of someone that can just be a really productive pass rusher and really just productive force at defensive tackle, probably a 3-tech in this defensive line rotation in a few years. Christian Clark, 4-star running back out of Arizona. Texas has been recruiting Arizona pretty well in the last few cycles. And, I think for Clark, if you were an early enrollee, I think there would actually be a chance he'd get some reps next year. Maybe as that 3rd or 4th guy in the backfield. Unfortunately, I think it's just kind of harder to be that, to be in a spot to be an early enrollee when you're coming out of Arizona, just from what's been reported there. Just hard to, get the transfer credit for college. But someone that's just too versatile, I think too skilled, that he's going to be an impact player here multiple years. The 3rd one for me, you mentioned Santana Wilson. I think that's a pretty good choice there. I'll stray more toward, I'll give some love to Jordan Washington here. I just think that he's going to be a really good receiver, or like a receiving tight end on the 40. He, as long as he adds, let's say 10, 15 more pounds, so he can get on the field a little bit earlier in his career. So those would be my 3 guys.
Yeah, I like everything you said there. I got to go with Christian Clark too. I'm going to double down on that because I'm confident that he is a steal. And it's interesting because we mentioned, the depth of talent that Texas has in the running back room. I still think he's going to be good enough to break through. You mentioned, I said Santana Wilson earlier. And I'm gonna stick with that. No need to elaborate. And then another guy that I was hyping up a little earlier, Freddie DeBose Jr. I just think he's underrated because of that ACL, and if he can, come back and really get back to 100%, I think he could be scary. He can stretch the field, get the ball in his hands. I think year 2, he could compete to get in that top 4 type unit.
Yeah, I was looking back at the 3 I said last year. It was Connor, Sadir Mitchell, and Billy Walton. So
it's hard to it's going to take longer for these guys, obviously, because it's predicting some of the lower. Yeah, so interesting. The more years we do this show, then we'll be able to stack it up and see how it looks.
Yeah, I mean, I've got the articles going back.
Okay.
Multiple.
A while. Yeah. You got Jalen Ford on there anywhere?
I would have to go back a ways for that one.
I know, no kidding.
In 2022.
Nice.
Because I think that he was still underrated at that point. The problem is I ended up having 2 guys that we ended up losing because the class turnover. That's not a great example. Anyway, I'll end up editing this part out. But it is interesting to look back on because, evaluations can translate so much differently once these guys actually get on campus. And so, but, I'm excited about this class because I really think that, again, you just got such a perfect blend here of, talent, immediate impact guys and depth at key positions while the program's trending up at the right time heading into the SEC. Texas did good work in the portal, getting 2 guys, Matthew Golden and Andrew Bakuba, that I think everyone's excited about. And so, and potentially another one in Trey Moore, where these are 3 of the best guys at their positions in the portal in this transfer cycle. So great stuff there too. We'll have more on some of the portal guys here in the coming days and weeks, because it's been a whirlwind this week. Texas, it seems like the commitments are nonstop. It seems like the recruiting momentum is nonstop, and I think we're probably going to get more this weekend. So anyway, for Andrew Miller, Shane Black, hook'emheadlines.com, the Hook'em Horn Show. That's pretty much it. Hook 'em.
Hook 'em.